Step into T.C channel, where every brain-bending mystery unfolds, one clue at a time. Don't just watch, subscribe now and challenge yourself to crack the case. Imagine this. Your mind is sharp, but your body is slowly falling apart. You're aware of your decline, but you can't do anything to stop it. This was the reality for one factory worker, who, after triggering a critical reaction at work, went from a healthy man to a near-death state in just 83 days. What exactly happened? This is the shocking story of the Tokai Village Criticality Accident in Japan, 1999. In the summer of 1999, 35-year-old Dainiji started working at the JCO Tokai plant in Tokai Village, Ibaraki Prefecture. The plant, part of a metal mining company, was responsible for making enriched uranium fuel for local nuclear power plants. Though the process itself was technical, for someone like Dainiji, a lower-level worker, it wasn't too complicated. He simply followed a few steps to mix pre-prepared materials and extract the highly concentrated nuclear fuel. Dainiji quickly adapted to the work, thanks to his hard work and dedication. But on September 30th, 1999, everything changed. That morning, he was assigned to work with two colleagues, Uemoto and Hara. The process started normally, until they reached the final step. Dainiji was holding the funnel steady, while Uemoto poured the nitric acid solution into it. Normally, this would have resulted in producing enriched uranium fuel, but when the seventh barrel of solution was added, there was a loud snap. Then, a brilliant blue light erupted from the settling tank. This blue light, usually a sign of stability, now signaled something dangerous. The sudden burst made Dainiji dizzy. His mind became clouded. A few seconds later, the plant's radiation detectors went off, and from a distance, Hara screamed, "Run! We've reached critical mass." Critical mass means the reactor exceeded its safe limits, causing an uncontrollable nuclear fission reaction. Since Dainiji was closest to the source, he became the first to be heavily exposed to radiation. Hara immediately realized how serious it was, and rushed to drag Dainiji and Uemoto to the decontamination room. But just as they entered, Dainiji collapsed, losing consciousness. The radiation detectors were already off the charts, unable to show the extreme radiation levels. At 11:34 a.m., the factory called for emergency medical assistance, but didn't mention the nuclear leakage. This oversight led to the rescue team entering without protective gear. Soon, local fire and police departments received the alert, reporting a suspected criticality accident at the Tokai Village plant. Because the plant was surrounded by residential areas and farmland, it was estimated that at least 600 people were exposed to radiation in the initial wave. After the incident, Dainiji and Uemoto suffered the most from the radiation, while Hara, who was farther from the source, was exposed to far less radiation. The three were rushed to the hospital for treatment. As radiation levels couldn't be quickly assessed, roads leading to the factory were blocked, and residents within 350 meters were evacuated. Residents within a 10-kilometer radius were told to stay indoors and seal their windows. Fear, invisible but overwhelming, spread throughout Tokai Village, as people waited anxiously for the unknown. That evening, the Japan Safety Committee arrived to investigate the cause. What they uncovered was shocking. The plant was supposed to follow strict procedures, mixing low-concentration uranium powder with nitric acid, and then transferring it into a dissolving tank. However, since 1995, the plant had replaced the dissolving tank with stainless steel drums, mixing the ingredients directly in the drums, and then transferring the mixture to a buffer tank. While this was an unapproved method, the buffer tank temporarily prevented issues. It wasn't until September 29, 1999, when the factory rushed to meet production targets, that Dainiji and Uemoto skipped the buffer tank step, pouring the nitric solution directly into the settling tank. They thought they were saving time, but they didn't realize this mistake would lead to catastrophic consequences. It all started the day before, when 26 liters of a crude nitric acid solution, with a concentration of 18.8%, were poured into the settling tank. Unaware, the two workers added the seventh barrel of solution, and by then, there were already over 16 kilograms of oil in the tank, 7 times the allowed limit. This sudden overload triggered a critical reaction, releasing powerful radiation that turned the entire plant into an out-of-control reactor, leading to the catastrophic accident. In the aftermath, the investigation team instructed JCO employees to wear protective gear and work in pairs for 1-minute shifts, injecting oxygen, draining the cooling water, and adding boron to halt the chain reaction. After 20 hours of emergency actions, by 6:30 a.m. on October 1st, neutron levels finally dropped to safe levels. Dainiji was quickly taken to the university hospital, where a specialized radiation treatment team, led by Dr. Chen Chuan and Dr. Yen, took charge of his care. Initially, Dainiji and Wamoto seemed stable. They were conscious, with slightly darkened skin and mild swelling in their arms. Nurses believed they'd recover soon. However, within just a day, Dainiji's condition sharply worsened. The intense radiation had damaged his DNA, halted his metabolism, and left his cells unable to regenerate. From that moment, his body began to break down, his organs started to fail, and death seemed inevitable. Even so, the medical team did everything they could to keep him alive, carefully documenting each treatment's response, hoping to learn from the case for future incidents. In just 6 days, his white blood cell count plummeted, leaving him vulnerable to infections. He was moved to a sterile ward, and his sister was contacted for a white blood cell transplant. 10 days after the transplant, his white blood cell count started to improve, returning to normal levels. Although he couldn't speak, he communicated with his family through body language, offering a small flicker of hope to everyone. But within a week, the new cells mutated, his chromosomes were damaged, and his immune system failed to recover. By day 27, Dainiji's condition continued to decline, severe diarrhea set in, and the lining of his intestines began to shed. His skin completely peeled off, and with the constant fluid loss, he was wrapped head to toe in gauze to prevent dehydration. Doctors attempted skin grafts, but the artificial skin wouldn't adhere to his wounds. Throughout his treatment, he lost so much blood that he needed constant transfusions. His heart was under immense strain, beating more than 120 times per minute. Eventually, his heart stopped. After an hour of intense resuscitation, his heart started beating again, but the damage was extensive, affecting several organs. His condition deteriorated rapidly, and he became fully reliant on medication to stay alive. The medical team spent hours every day caring for him, cleaning his open wounds, and preventing them from sticking to the sheets. To help ease the pain, his limbs were gently handled. By day 65, his blood tests showed more abnormalities, immune cells began to attack normal cells, and almost all of his remaining white blood cells were destroyed. Doctors could only continue the blood transfusions, using medication to keep his blood levels stable. On day 81, the doctors, alongside Dainiji's family, agreed that if his heart stopped again, they wouldn't attempt resuscitation. By then, his heart was the only organ still functioning. During his time in the hospital, his wife and children folded nearly 10,000 paper cranes, hoping for his recovery. Sadly, on December 21, 1999, at 11:21 a.m., Dainiji passed away. Wamoto also passed away after 21 days of treatment, while Hara, who was farther from the critical point, received a lower dose of radiation. After treatment, he recovered and was discharged on December 20th. This disaster really showed just how limited human medicine is when dealing with nuclear radiation. As things unfolded, the public quickly turned their focus to the factory, with many believing that the factory was clearly responsible for the tragedy. On March 3, 2003, JCO Factory was fined 1 million yen for poor management, after failing to follow crucial safety rules. 6 employees, including the surviving supervisor Mr. Hara, were sentenced to up to 3 years in prison for their negligence that caused the deaths. At the same time, JCO Factory decided to shut down its nuclear-related operations, scale back its business, and shift focus to compensation and handling the aftermath. Maybe, at the very moment that blue light flashed, the core of life was already changed. In that instant, everything was thrown off balance, but he stayed conscious, helplessly watching his body slowly break down. Throughout his treatment, Dainiji remained fully aware, feeling his body weaken with each passing day, enduring unimaginable pain, and slowly but surely approaching the end. In his final moments, Dainiji's wife wrote a letter to Dr. Chen Chuan, saying, "Maybe I'm being too pessimistic, but as long as nuclear energy isn't fully controlled, these kinds of accidents will keep happening." She added, "I just can't trust humanity anymore. If those working with nuclear energy can't even protect themselves, then I ask the medical community, please don't let my husband's sacrifice be in vain, but save those who may fall victim in the future."